Jake Morrison walked down the long metal corridor of the UCS Defiant with his duffel bag slung over his shoulder. The ship was massive, bigger than any vessel he had worked on before. Other crew members passed by him, some human, some clearly not. He saw tall, blue-skinned beings with 4 arms and shorter creatures that looked like they were made of living rock. This was his first assignment on a multi-species military ship, and everything felt strange and new. He stopped at door 247C and checked his assignment tablet again. This was supposed to be his quarters for the next 6 months. Jake pressed his palm against the scanner, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. He stepped inside expecting to see a standard single room with a bed, desk, and storage locker. Instead, he found himself face to face with 2 identical alien beings. They stood perfectly still, staring at him with large golden eyes. Their skin had a crystalline quality that seemed to catch and reflect the room's light. They were tall and thin, with angular faces and long fingers that ended in what looked like small gemstones. Both wore matching gray uniforms that seemed to be made from the same crystalline material as their skin. "Excuse me," Jake said, checking his tablet once more. "I think there might be a mistake. This is room 247C, right?" The 2 aliens looked at each other, then back at Jake. One of them stepped forward. "You are the human engineer Jake Morrison," it said in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "We are Vex and Zara of the Kalani people. We have been assigned to share this space with you." Jake looked around the small room. There was 1 bed, 1 desk, and 1 storage unit. The bed was clearly designed for a humanoid species, but it was barely large enough for 2 people, let alone 3. "Share this room, all 3 of us?" "The ship's computer has assigned us all to quarters 247C, the other alien, who must be Zara, said. "There has been no error in the system." Jake dropped his bag and walked to the small communication panel on the wall. He pressed the button to contact the duty officer. "This is Engineer Morrison in room 247C. I think there's been a mistake with my room assignment." A tired voice crackled through the speaker. "What's the problem, Morrison? I'm supposed to have quarters to myself. But there are already 2 aliens here. The room only has 1 bed. Hold on." There was a long pause. "Sorry, Morrison. The ship is over capacity this mission. Emergency housing protocols are in effect. You'll have to make it work." Next, the communication channel went dead. Jake stared at the panel for a moment, then turned back to the 2 Kalani. They were watching him with those unsettling golden eyes. "It appears we must indeed share this space," Vex said. "This is highly irregular," Zara added. "Our people require specific environmental conditions and privacy protocols." Jake rubbed his forehead. "Look, I'm not thrilled about this either, but we're all stuck here. Maybe we can figure something out." The twins exchanged a look, and Jake could swear he saw some kind of silent communication pass between them. Their eyes seemed to flash with tiny lights. "We propose a schedule," Vex said. "We will create a rotation system for use of the sleeping area, the workspace, and the hygiene facilities." "A detailed schedule," Zara agreed, "with specific time allocations and behavioral protocols." Jake walked over to the bed and sat down. On it, the mattress was standard fleet issue, firm but comfortable. Or we could just wing it, be flexible. Both aliens made a sound like crystal breaking. Jake realized they were probably expressing shock or displeasure. "Wing it?" Vex repeated. "This phrase is unknown to us." "It means to improvise, to figure things out as we go along." "Improvisation leads to chaos," Zara said firmly. "Chaos leads to system failure." Jake looked at his 2 new roommates. They stood with perfect posture, their crystalline skin reflecting the room's lights in shifting patterns. Everything about them seemed precise and ordered. "This was going to be a long 6 months." "Okay," Jake said. "Let's see this schedule of yours." Vex pulled out a tablet that seemed to be made of the same crystalline material as their skin. The screen displayed a complex chart with different colored sections. "We have divided the day into optimal segments. You will have access to the sleeping area from 2,200 hours to 0600 hours. Vex will use it from 0600 to 1400 hours. I will use it from 1400 to 2200 hours. Jake studied the chart. It was incredibly detailed, with specific times for everything from personal hygiene to meditation periods. What about meals? Recreation time? Meals will be consumed in the common dining areas, Vex explained. Recreation is not scheduled as we do not engage in non-productive activities. Non-productive activities? Jake laughed. You mean like having fun? The twins exchanged another one of their silent communications. Fun is a human concept, Zara said. We find fulfillment in the completion of assigned tasks and the achievement of optimal efficiency. Jake stood up and walked to his bag. He pulled out a small photo of his family back on Earth and stuck it to the wall next to the bed. Then he took out a small music player and set it on the desk. What are those objects? Vex asked. The photo is my family. The music player is for relaxation. Personal items are not permitted in shared spaces, Zara said. They create visual disorder and may interfere with others' mental processes. And the sound device will disrupt our meditation cycles, Vex added. Jake looked at the two aliens, then at his photo and music player. Look, I understand you have your ways of doing things, but this is my space too. I need a few personal items to feel comfortable. Comfort is less important than efficiency, Zara said. Maybe for you, but not for me. The room fell silent. Jake could hear the hum of the ship's engines and the distant sound of other crew members in the corridor. His two roommates stood perfectly still, their golden eyes fixed on him. We must adapt, Vex said finally. The mission requires cooperation between all species. But adaptation must be mutual, Zara added. You must also adjust your behaviors. To accommodate our needs, Jake nodded. Fair enough. But that schedule of yours needs some flexibility built in. What if one of us has to work late? What if there's an emergency? Emergencies are accounted for in subsection 7b, Vex said, consulting. Their tablet. What about when I snore? Both aliens made that crystal-breaking sound again. Snore? Zara asked. Yeah, I make noise when I sleep. Humans do that sometimes. The twins looked at each other with what Jake was beginning to recognize as alarm. Noise during rest periods will disrupt our regenerative cycles, Vex said. Your regenerative cycles will be compromised, Zara agreed. This is unacceptable. Jake sat back down on the bed. Well, what do you suggest? I can't exactly stop breathing while I sleep. Perhaps you could sleep in the engineering bay, Vex suggested, or the common areas, Zara added. I'm not sleeping in the hallway, Jake said firmly. We need to find a solution that works for everyone. The twins began speaking to each other in rapid clicks and chirps. Jake watched, fascinated. Despite his frustration, their communication was so fast and complex that he couldn't follow it at all. After a few minutes, they turned back to him. We will attempt to adapt our regenerative cycles to accommodate low-level noise, Vex said. In exchange, you must limit your personal items to one corner of the room, Zara added. Jake looked at his photo and music player, then at his new roommates. Deal, but I want to understand more about these regenerative cycles. If I'm going to live with you, I need to know what you need to stay healthy. Our physiology requires specific mineral supplements and temperature regulation, Vex explained. We also require periods of harmonic resonance for optimal mental function. Harmonic resonance? We generate sound frequencies that help organize our thoughts, Zara said. It may seem like singing to you, Jake smiled. Well, that doesn't sound. Too bad, I like music. Our harmonics are not music, Vex said quickly. They are functional sound patterns, if you say so. The three of them stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then Jake's stomach growled loudly. Both aliens stepped back in alarm. What was that sound? Zara asked. I'm hungry, Jake explained. That's the sound my stomach makes when it needs food. Your internal organs make audible sounds? Vex asked. Sometimes, don't yours? Our systems operate silently, Zara said. External sounds indicate malfunction. Jake realized he was going to have to explain a lot of basic human biology to his new roommates. Look, why don't we go get some food and we can talk about all this? I'm starving, and I bet you need those mineral supplements. The twins considered this. Nutritional intake is scheduled for 1800 hours, Vex said. Jake checked his watch. It was 17:30. Close enough. Let's go. As they walked toward the door, Jake realized that the next 6 months were going to be unlike anything he had ever experienced. He was sharing a tiny room with two aliens who seemed to have no concept of flexibility or fun. But maybe, just maybe, they could all learn something from each other. The door slid shut behind them as they headed for the dining hall, three very different beings trying to figure out how to live together in the cold depths of space. 3 days had passed since Jake first met his alien roommates, and the sleeping arrangement was becoming a real problem. The bed was too small for 3 people, and nobody was getting proper rest. Jake had tried sleeping on the floor the first night, but the metal deck was too cold and uncomfortable. The twins had insisted on following their rigid schedule, which meant Jake often found himself waiting in the corridor while one of them used the room. On the 4th morning, Jake woke up to find Vex sitting perfectly still in the corner, making soft humming sounds. The crystalline being's skin was glowing with a faint blue light, and the sounds seemed to come from deep within their chest. Jake watched quietly, not wanting to interrupt what was clearly some kind of meditation. When Vex finished, they turned to Jake with those golden eyes. You observed our harmonic resonance period. Yeah, sorry. I didn't want to disturb you. It was actually kind of beautiful. Vex tilted their head slightly. Beautiful is not a term we use for functional processes. Maybe not, but it sounded nice anyway. Jake got up and began his morning routine. As he brushed his teeth, he noticed that the small sonic cleanser the twins used was much more efficient than his manual toothbrush. When he mentioned this, Zara explained that their people had developed the technology centuries ago. Your cleaning method is primitive but thorough, Zara observed. It requires significant time investment. Sometimes the old ways work just fine, Jake replied, spitting into the sink. Later that morning, all 3 of them reported to Engineering Bay 7 for their first joint assignment. The bay was huge, filled with complicated machinery and displays, showing the ship's various systems. Chief Engineer Martinez, a stocky human woman with graying hair, briefed them on their task. We need to repair the secondary life support system in Section 12, she said. It's been running at 70% efficiency for the past week. Standard procedure is to replace the entire unit, but we're low on spare parts. She handed them a technical manual and pointed to a massive piece of equipment in the corner. Figure out how to fix it with what we have. We've got 8 hours. Jake looked at the machine, then at the manual. It was clearly designed by committee, with redundant systems and overly complex connections. The twins immediately began scanning the equipment with their tablets, taking precise measurements and recording data. The malfunction appears to be in the tertiary processing matrix, Vex announced after 10 minutes of analysis. Replacement parts are not available, Zara added. Standard repair protocol cannot be implemented. Jake walked around the machine, running his hands along the pipes and connections. What if we don't follow standard protocol? Both twins stopped what they were doing and stared at him. Deviation from established procedures is not permitted, Vex said. Says who? The technical manual clearly states that unauthorized modifications will void the warranty and may result in system failure, Zara recited. Jake laughed. We're in the middle of deep space on a military ship. I don't think the warranty matters much out here. He opened a storage locker and began pulling out various spare parts and tools. Most of them were for completely different systems, but Jake had learned long ago that one piece of equipment could often be adapted for another purpose. What are you doing? Vex asked. Looking for solutions, Jake replied. See this power coupling from the old communications array? It's the same voltage as what we need, just a different shape. He held up a metal component that looked nothing like what the manual specified. And this flow regulator from the water recycling system, it can handle the same pressure as the broken part. The twins watched in fascination as Jake began dismantling the failed component. He worked quickly and confidently, his hands moving in ways that seemed almost instinctive. Within an hour, he had identified the exact source of the problem and begun building a replacement part from the spare components. This approach violates multiple safety protocols, Zara pointed out. Maybe, but it's going to work, Jake said, connecting two pieces with a makeshift adapter he had created from scrap metal. How can you be certain? Vex asked. Experience. I've been fixing broken machines since I was 12 years old. Sometimes the best solution isn't in the manual. As Jake worked, he began explaining his reasoning to the twins. He showed them how different systems on the ship use similar principles, and how parts from one area could be adapted for another. The twins listened intently, their golden eyes following his every movement. Your methods are highly irregular, Vex observed. But they demonstrate a deep understanding of mechanical principles, Zara added. Thanks, I think. By midday, Jake had completed his improvised repair. The machine hummed back to life, and the efficiency readings showed 95% function. The twins ran their scans and confirmed that all systems were operating within acceptable parameters. This is remarkable, Vex said, studying the cobbled-together replacement part. The solution is both functional and elegant, Zara agreed. Though it appears chaotic, it follows logical engineering principles. Jake wiped his hands on a rag and smiled. Sometimes chaos is just another word for creativity. When Chief Martinez returned to check on their progress, she was amazed to find the system not only repaired, but running better than before. How did you manage this? She asked. Team effort, Jake said, glancing at the twins. Vex and Zara did. All the analysis and measurements. I just put the pieces together. After Martinez left, the twins approached Jake. Why did you credit us with the success? Vikas asked. Because it's true. I couldn't have done the precise calculations you did. And you helped me understand the system better. The twins exchanged one of their silent communications. We have never worked with a human before, Zara said. Your methods are very different from ours. Different isn't always bad, Jake replied. That evening they returned to their shared quarters. The tension from the previous days seemed to have lessened. Jake noticed that the twins had moved some of their equipment to create a small workspace for him near his corner. We observed that you prefer to work on personal projects during rest periods, Vex explained. This arrangement allows you to do so without disrupting our regenerative cycles. Thanks. That's really thoughtful. Jake sat down at the small space and pulled out a damaged tablet he had been trying to repair. The screen was cracked and several components were loose. As he worked, he noticed the twins watching him with interest. What are you creating? Zara asked. Just fixing an old tablet. It's not really important. But you are investing significant time in a device that could be easily replaced, Vex observed. Jake looked up from his work. It belonged to my grandfather. He taught me how to fix things when I was little. I guess I like holding on to that connection. The twins were quiet for a moment. Then Zara reached into their storage area and pulled out a small crystalline formation. It was beautiful, with internal lights that pulsed in complex patterns. This is a memory crystal from our home world, Zara explained. It contains the harmonic patterns of our birth cluster, the group of Kelani who were created at the same time as us, Vex said. We were separated from them when we joined the military. This crystal helps us maintain connection to our origins. Jake set down his tools and looked at the crystal. It's beautiful. I can see why it means so much to you. We thought you might understand, Zara said. Your attachment to objects with personal significance is not entirely foreign to us. We also wish to apologize, Vex added. We have been inflexible in our approach to cohabitation. Jake smiled. We're all just trying to figure this out. Nobody gave us a manual for how 3 different species should live together. Perhaps we do not require a manual, Zara suggested. Perhaps we can develop our own protocols. Now you're talking, Jake said. How about we start with the sleeping situation? I've been thinking about a solution. He showed them a sketch he had made of a folding partition that could create separate sleeping areas. I can build this from spare materials. It won't be fancy, but it'll give us all some privacy. The twins examined the design. This is practical, Vex said. And it addresses the primary source of our cohabitation difficulties, Zara agreed. Great. I'll start working on it tomorrow. As they prepared for sleep, Jake noticed that the twins had become more relaxed around him. They still followed their precise routines, but they seemed less concerned about his presence. And when Jake accidentally knocked over his water bottle, they didn't react with alarm like they had the first few days. Jake, Vex said as they settled into their respective sleeping areas, your repair work today was impressive. We had not considered the possibility of cross-system adaptation. Your people think very differently from ours, Zara added. It is educational. I'm learning a lot from you too, Jake replied. Your precision and attention to detail are amazing. I never would have gotten those measurements right without your help. The room fell quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Jake lay on his small section of the bed thinking about the day's events. Working with the twins had been challenging but rewarding. They approached problems so differently from him, but somehow their methods complemented each other. He was just starting to drift off when he heard the soft harmonic sounds that meant the twins were beginning their regenerative cycle. 2 weeks had passed since Jake and the twins began working together, and their shared quarters had become much more livable. Jake had built the partition he had promised, creating 3 separate sleeping areas. He had also rigged a small environmental control system that kept the twin section at the cooler temperature they needed while maintaining normal human comfort levels in his area. The 3 of them had developed a routine that worked for everyone. Jake would wake up early and work on personal projects while the twins completed their morning harmonic resonance. They would eat breakfast together in the common dining area, then report to their engineering assignments. Evenings were spent in their quarters, with Jake tinkering with various repairs while the twins analyzed technical data and maintained their equipment. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning when the ship's emergency alarms began blaring throughout the corridors. Jake bolted upright in his bed as red lights flashed and the automated warning system announced a critical system failure. The twins were already moving, their crystalline skin glowing brighter as they responded to the crisis. All engineering personnel report to emergency stations immediately, came the announcement over the ship's communication system. This is not a drill. Jake grabbed his uniform and tools while the twins gathered their equipment with practiced efficiency. They rushed through the corridors along with dozens of other crew members, all heading toward the engineering bays. Chief Martinez was waiting for them in the main engineering center, her face grim. Behind her, multiple displays showed ship systems failing one by one. We've encountered a massive spatial anomaly, she announced to the assembled engineers. It's disrupting our power grid and causing cascading failures throughout the ship. Jake looked at the displays and felt his stomach drop. The ship's primary power systems were operating at only 30% capacity. Life support was failing in several sections and the engines were barely functional. We have maybe 4 hours before complete system shutdown, Martinez continued. All repair teams are being deployed to critical areas. Morrison, Vex, Zara, you're assigned to the main power distribution center. Get it working or we're all dead. The 3 of them ran through the corridors toward the power center, dodging other crew members and avoiding sections where the gravity was fluctuating. When they reached their destination, Jake saw the extent of the damage. The massive power distribution hub was sparking and smoking, with several main conduits completely severed. The damage is extensive, Vex said, scanning the area with their tablet. Multiple primary systems have failed simultaneously. Standard repair protocols will require at least 12 hours, Zara added. We do not have sufficient time. Jake looked at the twisted metal and burnt circuits. The standard approach would be to replace each damaged component individually, following the technical manual step by step, but they didn't have the time or the parts for that kind of methodical repair. We need to think differently, Jake said. What if we bypass the damaged sections entirely? Bypass systems are not part of the approved repair procedures, Vex pointed out. The manual clearly states that power distribution modifications require approval from 3 separate departments, Zara added. The manual doesn't account for emergencies. Like this, Jake replied. Sometimes you have to improvise. He began pulling panels off the walls, exposing the network of cables and conduits that carried power throughout the ship. The damage was worse than he had initially thought, but Jake could see patterns in the chaos. Years of working with improvised repairs had taught him to visualize how systems connected and how power could be rerouted. See this main trunk line? Jake pointed to a thick cable that was severed in 3 places. Instead of trying to repair it, we can run new connections through the secondary systems. The secondary systems are not designed to handle primary power loads, Vex said. Not individually, but if we distribute the load across multiple secondary lines, they can handle it temporarily. Jake began pulling cables and components from storage lockers, working with the same intuitive speed he had shown during their first repair job, but this time the stakes were much higher. The ship's lights flickered as power fluctuated, and Jake could hear the life support system struggling to maintain atmosphere. I need precise calculations, Jake said to the twins. If I guess wrong about the power loads, I could overload the entire system. Vex and Zara immediately began working with their tablets, calculating power requirements and system tolerances. Their ability to process complex mathematics in real time was exactly what Jake needed. As he worked, they fed him a constant stream of data about voltage levels, current capacity, and system limitations. The tertiary power line can handle 67% of normal load, Vex announced. The backup distribution network can carry an additional 23%, Zara added. That's 90% total, Jake said, connecting a jury-rigged adapter between 2 incompatible systems. We can work with that. The repair became a desperate race against time. Jake's hands moved quickly, connecting cables and bypassing damaged components while the twins provided the precise calculations needed to make his improvised solutions work. They had to think beyond the standard procedures, combining human creativity with alien precision. Warning: life support failure in sections 7 through 12, the ship's computer announced. Evacuation procedures initiated. How much more time do we need? Zara asked. 10 minutes, Jake replied, sweat dripping from his forehead as he worked. Maybe 15. We may not have that long, Vex said, monitoring the ship's overall systems. Hull integrity is beginning to fail. Jake looked at the half-finished repair and made a decision that went against every safety protocol he had ever learned. I'm going to hotwire the main power coupling. It's dangerous, but it's the only way to get power flowing fast enough. Hotwire? Both twins asked simultaneously. Connect the power while the system is still active. One mistake, and the feedback could kill me. The twins exchanged one of their rapid communications. We will monitor the power levels and warn you of any dangerous fluctuations, Vex said. Your safety is more important than the repair, Zara added. Jake was touched by their concern, but he knew there was no choice. He carefully approached the main power coupling, a massive component that controlled the flow of energy throughout the ship. Normally it would be completely shut down before any work began, but they didn't have time for normal procedures. Power levels are steady, Vex reported. You have a window of approximately 30 seconds before the next fluctuation. Jake reached into the coupling with his tools, feeling the heat from the active power flow. His hands moved with practiced precision, connecting the bypass cables to the live system. Sparks flew around his fingers, and he could smell the ozone from the electrical discharge. Fluctuation incoming, Zara warned. 15 seconds. Jake finished the last connection and pulled his hands away just as the power surge hit. The entire room lit up with electrical discharge, and the repaired systems came online with a deep humming sound. Primary power restored to 87%, Vex announced. All critical systems are now operational. Jake slumped against the wall, exhausted. Did we do it? Life support is stabilizing throughout the ship, Zara confirmed. Engine power is returning to normal levels. The three of them stood in the power center, surrounded by Jake's improvised repairs and the twins' precise calculations. The crisis was over, but Jake realized that something fundamental had changed between them. "Your repair methods saved the ship," Vex said. "Without your willingness to deviate from standard procedures, we would have failed." "I couldn't have done it without your calculations," Jake replied. "You made my crazy ideas actually work." "We have learned much from observing your approach," Zara said. "Perhaps there is value in combining our different methods." Chief Martinez arrived a few minutes later with a team of technicians. When she saw the jury-rigged repairs that had saved the ship, her eyes widened in amazement. "How did you manage this?" she asked. "Teamwork," Jake said simply. "We each brought different skills to the problem." "This is going to be studied at the Engineering Academy," Martinez said. "You've created solutions that nobody thought were possible." Later that evening, back in their quarters, the three of them sat quietly reflecting on the day's events. The crisis had pushed them beyond their individual limitations and forced them to truly work as a team. "I have never experienced such intense collaboration," Vex said. "Our people typically work in isolation or in perfectly synchronized groups. Working with Jake required us to adapt our thinking in real time," Zara added. "It was challenging, but rewarding. I learned a lot too," Jake said. "Your precision and analysis made my ideas actually feasible. I never could have calculated those power loads on my own." As they prepared for sleep, Jake noticed that the twins seemed different. They were still precise and methodical, but there was a new flexibility in their movements. And when Jake accidentally knocked over his water bottle again, they actually seemed amused rather than alarmed. "Jake," Vex said as they settled into their sleeping areas, "today you risked your life to save the ship? Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do. We're all in this together." The success of their emergency repair had made Jake and the twins something of celebrities aboard the UCS Defiant. Other crew members would nod respectfully when they passed in the corridors, and several department heads had requested their expertise for difficult technical problems. Chief Martinez had even mentioned that their innovative approach might become standard procedure for emergency situations. 3 weeks after the crisis, Jake was working late in Engineering Bay 5 when he noticed something strange. He was installing a new power coupling when he found small scratches on several key components. The marks were subtle, barely visible unless you knew what to look for. Jake had seen similar damage before on civilian ships, usually caused by deliberate sabotage. He called Vex and Zara over to examine the components. The twins scanned the damaged parts with their tablets, their golden eyes reflecting concern as they analyzed the data. "These marks are not consistent with normal wear patterns," Vex reported. "The damage appears to have been caused by deliberate interference," Zara added. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Someone's been sabotaging our work." They searched through their recent repair jobs and found similar evidence of tampering. Small cuts in cables, loosened connections, and subtle modifications that would cause systems to fail after a few days of operation. It was skilled work, done by someone who understood engineering systems well enough to make the sabotage look like natural equipment failure. "We must report this to Chief Martinez immediately," Vex said. "Wait," Jake replied. "If we're right about this, whoever is doing it might be watching us. We need to be careful about who we trust." The twins exchanged one of their silent communications. "You suspect the saboteur is someone with access to engineering areas," Zara said. "It has to be. These modifications require detailed knowledge of ship systems and access to restricted areas." Jake looked around the engineering bay, suddenly feeling exposed. "Let's go back to our quarters and figure out our next move." Back in their room, the three of them spread out their evidence on Jake's small workspace. The pattern of sabotage was clear once they knew what to look for. Someone had been systematically targeting their repair work, trying to make it fail in ways that would discredit their innovative methods. "The sabotage began shortly after our successful emergency repair," Vex observed. "Someone does not want our collaborative approach to succeed," Zara added. Jake studied the timeline they had created. "This isn't random vandalism. Whoever is doing this has a specific goal. They want to prove that non-standard repair methods are dangerous. But why? Vex asked. Politics, maybe, or prejudice? Some people don't like the idea of different species working together. The twins' crystalline skin seemed to dim as they processed this information. We have encountered such attitudes before, Zara said quietly. Some beings believe that species should remain separate. Some humans feel the same way, Jake admitted. They think aliens are taking jobs from human workers. Over the next few days, they began watching for suspicious activity while continuing their normal duties. Jake taught the twins how to spot signs of sabotage that might not show up on their technical scans. The twins used their analytical abilities to track patterns in the ship's work schedules and access logs. Their breakthrough came when Jake noticed that Lieutenant Collins, a human engineer from another department, always seemed to be nearby when they were working. Collins was experienced and well-respected, but Jake had overheard him making negative comments about alien crew members. He was in Engineering Bay 5 yesterday when we found the damaged coupling, Jake told the twins. Lieutenant Collins also had access to the power distribution center during our emergency repair, Vex said, checking the access logs. His shift schedule places him in proximity to 87% of the sabotage incidents, Zara calculated, but they needed proof. Jake suggested they set a trap by announcing a fake repair project and seeing if Collins took the bait. The twins were uncomfortable with deception, but they agreed it was necessary. Jake spread word around the engineering department that they were working on a revolutionary new power system that would change how ships were designed, he made sure. The information reached Collins through other crew members, making it seem like gossip rather than a deliberate leak. That night, they hid in Engineering Bay 7 and waited. Jake had rigged a small motion detector to alert them if anyone entered the bay after hours. At 0230 hours, the detector signaled that someone was moving through the engineering section. They watched from their hiding place as Collins entered the bay with a toolkit and began examining the fake equipment they had set up. He worked quickly and skillfully, making modifications that would cause the system to fail catastrophically. We have our proof, Vex whispered, but as they prepared to confront Collins, they heard footsteps in the corridor. 2 more figures entered the bay, and Jake recognized them as Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez and Lieutenant Commander Hayes. All 3 saboteurs were human, and they seemed to be working together. How's the sabotage coming? Rodriguez asked Collins. Almost finished. When this system fails, it'll prove that these alien-human teams are dangerous. Command will have to separate the species again. Good, Hayes said. We can't have aliens showing up human engineers. It makes our people look incompetent. Jake felt anger building in his chest. These people were willing to endanger the entire ship just to maintain their prejudices. He looked at Vex and Zara, seeing the hurt in their golden eyes as they listened to the hatred directed at them. We need to stop them, Jake whispered. But before they could move, Collins noticed something wrong with his sabotage. Someone's been watching us, he said. This equipment isn't real. The 3 saboteurs began searching the bay systematically. Jake knew they would be discovered within minutes. He made a quick decision and stepped out of hiding. Looking for me? Jake asked, his voice echoing through the bay. Collins spun around, holding a plasma torch like a weapon. Morrison, I should have known you'd be involved. Why are you doing this? Jake asked, keeping his distance. We're all on the same side here. No, we're not, Rodriguez said. You've been helping aliens take human jobs? Making us look bad with your fancy repairs? The only thing making you look bad is your own incompetence, Jake replied. Hayes stepped forward threateningly. You're going to keep quiet about this, Morrison. Or you might have an accident during your next repair job. I don't think so, Jake said. That's when Vex and Zara emerged from hiding. Their crystalline skin was glowing bright blue, and they moved with perfect synchronization. The saboteurs stepped back in alarm. You are all under citizen's arrest for sabotage and threatening behavior, Vex announced. Aliens don't have authority over humans, Collins snarled. Actually, they do, Jake said. Ship regulations give any crew member the right to detain someone caught in the act of sabotage. The confrontation turned ugly quickly. Collins lunged at Jake with the plasma torch while Rodriguez and Hayes tried to escape. Jake dodged the torch and tackled Collins while the twins moved to block the exit. The fight was brief but intense. Collins was strong, but Jake had learned to fight dirty. During his years working in civilian shipyards, he managed to disarm Collins and pin him to the floor. Meanwhile, the twins used their superior reflexes and coordination to restrain Rodriguez and Hayes. "Security to Engineering Bay 7, Jake called into his communicator. "We have 3 crew members in custody for sabotage." When the security team arrived, they found clear evidence of the sabotage conspiracy. Collins' toolkit contained modified components designed to cause system failures, and the access logs showed a pattern of unauthorized entry into engineering areas. Chief Martinez arrived shortly after security, her face dark with anger. "I trusted these people," she said, looking at the 3 saboteurs. "They'd been undermining the safety of this ship for weeks. They were also planning to frame our repair methods for their sabotage," Jake explained. "They wanted to prove that interspecies cooperation was dangerous." Martinez shook her head in disgust. "Get them out of my sight. I'll make sure they face court-martial for this." After the saboteurs were taken away, Jake and the twins stood alone in the engineering bay. The adrenaline was wearing off, and Jake could see that the twins were shaken by the experience. "Are you okay?" he asked. "We did not expect such hatred from fellow crew members," Vex said quietly. "We knew that some beings disapproved of interspecies cooperation, but we did not realize they would resort to violence." Zara added. Jake put a hand on each of their shoulders, feeling the warmth of their crystalline skin. "Not everyone feels that way. Most of the crew respects what we've accomplished together." "Perhaps," Vex said. "But this experience has shown us how much some beings fear change." "Change is always scary for some people," Jake replied. "But that doesn't mean we should stop trying to work together." The twins looked at each other, then back at Jake. "You risked your safety to protect us," Zara observed. "Of course I did. We're partners. We look out for each other." "This concept of loyalty transcending species boundaries is still new to us," Vex admitted. "You'll get used to it," Jake said with a smile. As they walked back to their quarters, Jake reflected on how much had changed since he first met the twins. They had started as strangers forced. The court-martial of Collins, Rodriguez, and Hayes sent shockwaves through the ship. Word spread quickly that 3 senior human engineers had been sabotaging critical repairs to discredit interspecies cooperation. Some crew members were outraged by the betrayal, while others quietly wondered if the saboteurs had valid concerns about alien influence. Jake and the twins found themselves at the center of attention they never wanted. Captain Williams called them to her ready room 2 days after the arrest to discuss the situation. "Your actions prevented what could have been a catastrophic system failure," the captain said, reviewing the evidence on her tablet. "The fake power system Collins sabotaged would have caused a cascade failure throughout the ship." "We were just doing our duty," Jake replied. "Nevertheless, your partnership has become a symbol aboard this ship. Some see you as proof that interspecies cooperation works. Others view you as a threat to traditional human engineering methods." Vex stepped forward. "Captain, we do not wish to cause division among the crew. Neither do we want to abandon the collaborative methods that have proven so effective," Zara added. Captain Williams nodded thoughtfully. "Which brings me to why I called you here. Fleet Command has been monitoring your work since the emergency repair. They want to expand the interspecies engineering program based on your success." Jake felt his stomach tighten. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means you 3 are being transferred to different ships to establish similar partnerships throughout the fleet. You'll be separated, but your methods will be taught to other crews." The room fell silent. Jake looked at Vex and Zara, seeing his own dismay reflected in their golden eyes. After everything they had been through together, the idea of being split up felt wrong. "With respect, Captain," Jake said, "I think that's a mistake. Explain." "Our Success isn't just about mixing humans and aliens. It's about these specific individuals learning to work together. Vex and Zara aren't just any Kelani engineers. They're my partners. We've developed a unique working relationship that can't be easily replicated. Jake is correct, Vex said. Our collaboration functions because we have learned each other's strengths and adapted our methods accordingly. Separating us would eliminate the very foundation of our effectiveness, Zara added. Captain Williams leaned back in her chair. Fleet Command believes your individual skills can be transferred to other partnerships. Maybe they can, Jake said, but not as effectively. We've spent months learning how to communicate, how to combine our different approaches, how to trust each other completely. That's not something you can teach in a training manual. The captain studied them for a long moment. You're requesting to remain together as a team? Yes, all three said simultaneously. That's highly irregular. Individual crew members don't typically get to dictate their assignments. Then maybe it's time for some irregular thinking, Jake said. Our methods have saved this ship twice. We've proven that interspecies cooperation works. Why break up something that's already successful? Captain Williams was quiet for several minutes, clearly weighing her options. Finally, she reached for her communication device. Bridge, get me Fleet Admiral Morrison on priority channel. Jake's eyes widened. Morrison? Is he related to me? Your grandfather, actually. He's the one who recommended you for this assignment. 20 minutes later, Fleet Admiral Morrison appeared on the Ready Room's main screen. He was an older man with gray hair and sharp eyes that reminded Jake of his own. Jake had never met his grandfather's brother, but the family resemblance was unmistakable, Captain Williams, the Admiral said. I understand we have a situation with the engineering team. Yes, sir. They're requesting to remain together rather than be separated to train other crews. Admiral Morrison's gaze shifted to Jake. You must be Ben's grandson. He always said you had his talent for fixing impossible things. Thank you, sir. Now explain to me why you think Fleet Command is wrong about this assignment. Jake took a deep breath. Sir, what we've accomplished isn't just about human-alien cooperation. It's about building genuine partnerships based on mutual respect and understanding. You can't create that by putting random people together and hoping. It works. The young man has a point, Vex said. Our effectiveness stems from months of learning each other's capabilities and limitations. We have developed communication methods and work processes that are unique to our specific partnership. Zara added. Admiral Morrison listened carefully as they explained their reasoning. They described how their different approaches complemented each other, how they had learned to anticipate each other's needs, and how their success came from genuine friendship rather than just professional cooperation. Interesting, the Admiral said finally. Captain Williams, what's your assessment of their performance? Exceptional, sir. They've solved problems that stumped entire engineering departments. Their emergency repair saved the ship, and their investigation exposed a serious sabotage, conspiracy, and their request to remain together? I believe they're right, sir. Their partnership is more than the sum of its parts. Admiral Morrison was quiet for a moment. Very well. The team will remain together, but with expanded responsibilities. You'll be transferred to the UCS Enterprise as Chief Interspecies Engineering Specialists. Your job will be to tackle the most difficult technical problems the fleet encounters while also training other crews in collaborative methods. Jake felt relief wash over him. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. The Enterprise is the fleet's largest ship with crew members from 12 different species. If you think working with two Kelani is challenging, wait until you're coordinating with Vrixian hive minds and Zelithian energy beings. We'll manage, Jake said confidently. Sure you will. Your grandfather would be proud. After the communication ended, Captain Williams turned to them with a smile. Congratulations. You've just been promoted to the most challenging assignment in the fleet. When do we transfer? Vex asked. 2 weeks. That gives you time to finish your current projects and prepare for the new assignment. As they left the Ready Room, Jake felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The Enterprise would be a completely new challenge. But at least they would face it together. That evening, they sat in their quarters discussing the upcoming transfer. Jake was modifying a portable toolkit that would work with both human and colony equipment, while the twins updated their technical databases with information about other alien species. "Are you concerned about working with so many different species?" Zara asked. "A little," Jake admitted. "But we've proven that different approaches can work together. I think we can handle whatever comes next." "The Vexians will be particularly challenging," Vex said. "They operate as a collective consciousness, making individual relationships difficult." "And the Zelithians exist as pure energy," Zara added. "Physical collaboration may be impossible." Jake looked up from his work. "Remember when you thought my repair methods were chaotic and dangerous? Remember when I thought your precision was too rigid and slow?" The twins' crystalline skin flickered with what Jake had learned was their equivalent of amusement. "We have indeed adapted our perspective significantly," Vex acknowledged. "Perhaps we can help other species do the same," Zara suggested. "Exactly. Every species has something unique to offer. Our job is to figure out how to combine those strengths." As they packed their belongings over the next 2 weeks, Jake reflected on how much had changed. Since that first day when he walked into room 247C, he had expected a routine assignment and instead found something much more valuable. He had found partners who challenged him to think differently and friends who had his back. No matter what, the twins had changed too. They were still precise and methodical, but they had learned to appreciate creativity and flexibility. They had discovered that rules and procedures were tools to be used, not chains to be bound by. On their last night aboard the UCS Defiant, they held a small farewell party in their quarters. Several crew members stopped by to wish them well, including Chief Martinez and some of the engineers they had worked with. "You've changed how this ship operates," Martinez told them. "Engineering teams are more willing to try new approaches and work across species lines." "That's the best compliment we could receive," Jake said after everyone left. The three of them sat quietly in their shared room one last time. Tomorrow they would move to new quarters on the Enterprise, probably, with more space and better amenities. But Jake knew he would miss this cramped little room where they had learned to become a team. "Jake," Vex said, "when we first met, we believed you were chaotic and unpredictable. We were concerned that human methods would disrupt our systematic approaches," Zara added. "And I thought you were too rigid and formal," Jake replied. "I was wrong about a lot of things." "We all were," Vex said, "but perhaps that was necessary. Our differences forced us to grow." "The Enterprise assignment will present new challenges," Zara observed. "But we will face them as we have faced everything else. Together," Jake finished Daz. They settled into their sleeping areas for the last time. Jake listened to the familiar sounds of the twins' harmonic resonance. The gentle frequencies had become as comforting as a lullaby, a reminder that he was not alone in the vast darkness of space. Tomorrow would bring new adventure.